So if you're sitting in a restaurant and someone comes over, says they're a huge fan, wants to take a selfie from you, wants a signature, do you say to them, sorry, this is something I charge for, or do you just do it?
No, you're digging in deep now, Simon, huh? No,
this is a media industry podcast. This is what
I would never in a million years deign to charge someone outside of a convention for anything. That to me, if any of my fellow actors do that, that is their purview. I do not judge, but for me as an individual, that's a hard no. Well, there are people who will like camp out at airports and wait for us with like blank Funko Pops to like try and get us to sign. They're like a version of the autograph scalper, right? I don't prefer those people. I tend to not sign those, but every once in a while I'll be like, whatever, fine. And I'll fire off a few and I'll be like, I hope I made your day or whatever. But a real fan, if I was at a restaurant and no way I would ever charge for that in an IRL.
Hello, I'm Simon Owens, and this is The Business of Content, the show about how publishers create, distribute, and monetize their digital content. Robbie Daymond is best known as a prolific voice actor, the kind of performer whose work spans anime, video games, and animation without ever putting his face front and center. After slowly breaking into the industry in the late 2000s and early 2010s, he built a rare, multi-disciplinary voiceover career, one that includes everything from audiobooks to major gaming franchises. He also spends up to 30 weekends a year attending fan conventions, where he engages directly with audiences in what has quietly become one of the most lucrative and meaningful parts of his business. That creator-first ethos has increasingly shaped his ambitions beyond acting. In recent years, Daymond co-founded Sassy Chap Games, an independent studio that turned a quirky concept into one of the fastest-selling dating sims ever, fueled largely by viral user-generated content rather than traditional marketing. The project offers a window into how modern creative careers are evolving by blending IP ownership with direct-to-consumer distribution models. In a recent interview, Robbie explained how fan conventions have quietly become a major revenue engine for creators, why you don't always need a huge social media presence to build a large audience, and how revenue sharing models can unlock top tier creative talent. If you want to listen to an audio version of this show, subscribe to The Business of Content wherever you get your podcasts. Okay, let's jump into the interview. Hey Robbie, thanks for joining us.
I'm so glad to be here. Thanks for having me.
So I'm super excited to talk to you. I interview a lot of creators and media entrepreneurs on the show, but I really love interviewing creators who build their own products, who have like non-media revenue models. And you have built, with a few other creators, basically your own gaming studio. So I'm super excited to talk to that. But first, I just love to introduce you to my audience and just hear about your background. I've been spent the last few hours kind of reading up on your bio and checking out, some of your work. So you are primarily known among your fans as a voice actor, right? Would that be the first phrase that came to mind if someone said your name out loud?
Sure thing. I think if you were to Google me right now, it would say American voice actor. But yeah, that's been my full-time profession for the last 17 years. Yeah.
Yeah. And you started in the 2000s. How do you break into voice acting? Like, is it the same way that you do with like regular acting, or at least how I've seen it done on TV, where you're just going for auditions and casting and stuff like that?
Yeah. You have to be painfully bullheaded, I think, in order to succeed in this business. And you called it out. I came into LA I finished grad school in 2007, came straight to LA. I don't know if you know your early aughts history, but not the coolest time to be starting life as an adult, 2007, 2008, especially in LA.
Especially because that was the year of the writer's strikes as well.
Yeah, it was writer's strike and economic collapse. Super sweet time. What I will say this is that the years following were sort of a war of attrition, where everyone who stayed and dug their heels in, the cream sort of rise to the top. So there were more opportunities for the people that had been still grinding over those, 2007 to like 2010 years. And around 2009 is when I really, really started to break into the business. Yeah. And
so like, how do you want to become a voice actor versus an on-screen actor? Like, was that always the intent from the very beginning?
No, I was a theater kid. I did my first professional play when I was like 10. But I was also from small town Midwest, so I did a bunch of normal stuff like hunting and fishing and sports and all that good stuff. But theater was always in my heart. So that's what I went to college for. That's what I went to grad school for. My mom's a PhD college professor. I thought maybe I would end up in academics, but I made this deal with myself when I decided to go to grad school and commit myself to 3 more years of college, right? Was that I would give myself 7 years to grind as a professional actor before I started to pivot into anything else. And that's what I did. It was kind of like a pact I made with my 22-year-old self. So thankfully it shook out and I was able to pay my bills. But yeah, no, that was never fully the intent, but I've always been like an undercover nerd. So, voiceover in a theatrical sense, lives very much in the nerd realm these days. I mean, cartoons, video games, anime, audiobooks. I mean, those used to be, exclusively nerd pastimes, and now they've become fully mainstream. So it's a great space to be in right now if you truly love it. I mean, look behind me. This is my vanity shelf, full of figures that I have, of characters that I play. So I really do love this stuff. Yeah. So a little bit of serendipity mixed with, tenacity, and you end up in a place where you get to do what you love.
Well, were you like auditioning for like both on camera and voice roles, and it just so happened that your first early jobs were voice roles, and you decided this is the lane I'm going to go in, kind of thing?
No, I had a sort of equal representation on camera, off camera, theater. I was doing theater, I was doing commercials, a little bit of television. I was kind of trying to break into the indie film scene. I did like a couple of, questionable horror movies. Like I was pursuing that equally. And then what happened is I started getting this success in voiceover to where I was working so regularly that I was missing auditions. And in LA, if you're not auditioning every day, you're not booking, right? So my agents would be like, hey, they want you to go in, for SVU as cop number 3. And I'm like, I can't, I'm at Nickelodeon today. And that's a great problem to have. So eventually I had to say, maybe that grind isn't for me and I should run toward the stuff, which ultimately landed me being on camera anyway. So it's good. Cause I'm with Critical Role now. So, it's a different kind of on camera, but those are all, nerdy ass voice actors playing D&D. Yeah.
Yeah. And Critical Role, that's a Dropout show.
No, Dropout is that's Dimension 20, and Dropout also has a different slate of television shows. Critical Role was the first mainstream, not even mainstream, they made the genre live play of Dungeons and Dragons. And they're still kind of, top of the game in that. So they've done 4 long campaigns, of which I've been a part of 2.
Okay, we'll talk about that in a moment, but like, was there like a big breakout role for you in voice acting? Like, I know you've been in some big shows and video games and stuff like that. Yeah,
there are a couple. I mean, my it's not breakout that thing that anyone knows, but I flew down to Peru to do an animated movie, and then it ended up getting picked up by Fox Searchlight in 2008 or 9. And because I had a movie that was on Redbox, dating myself here, it was enough for me to get a manager that then pitched me to my first like real big voiceover agency. It was like, look, this kid's just starting out of grad school, and he's carrying a movie for Fox Searchlight. So like, let's get him in and he can at least be reading for Nickelodeon and Disney. So that movie was called The Dolphin Story of a Dreamer. Look it up if you dare. And then after that, I started booking cartoons, and then my next big breakout thing was about 4 years later, or 2 years later, I got cast, was a show called Breadwinners on Nickelodeon. And I believe I was cast in that in like 2010, 11, and it came out, I think, in 2014. But that was my first lead in an animated show. And then following that, shortly thereafter, was Final Fantasy 15, which was my first big video game role. So really 2011 to 2015. Also, when I was cast as Tuxedo Mask in 2014 in Sailor Moon, that I would say would be like my breakout half decade between 2010 and 2015.
So there are entire agencies who specialize in voiceover acting.
Yeah, absolutely. Some of the best agents for on camera really don't quite have the acumen to do voiceover. So the agency that I'm at right now, SBV, also has an on camera agency that I hear is pretty good. They do commercials and stuff, but they're top 5, top 3 for voiceover. It's the acronyms. It's DPT, SBV, and CESD. Used to be WME. We're kind of the goats in the game, but the industry's shrinking a little bit. it. So yeah, they're still top of the game.
And so you name checked video games and cartoons. You didn't mention audiobooks. Is there a lot of crossover between actors who do voiceovers for those other two things and audiobooks, or is audiobook like a completely different beast for voice actors?
I'm definitely not trying to like exalt myself or anything, but like I am a little bit of an outlier in that I have a pretty healthy career in sort of all facets of voiceover. I think a lot of people are more specialists, right? You've got the promo guys today on Disney Plus. You got those guys. You've got the commercial guys. Obviously, with a voice like mine, I'm not going to sell you car insurance, but yeah, audiobooks are a separate thing too. They're a great place for, beginners to cut their teeth. They're also a great place for veterans who really like the slower pace and chill place to be, to just sort of, you can do audiobooks forever. Some of the best people in the game are in their 60s and 70s, and they're sitting in the room reading these books, and they're doing amazing work. It's a very nuanced, very intellectually challenging. Like, you come home and you're really tired because like you've been just reading out loud for 8 hours a day. So yeah, that's totally different. I broke into that on my own. I just kind of kicked the door down at Random House and, auditioned for them. And then they made me work on my chops a little bit, and I came back and they started hiring me. So I did that for about 10 years. I still occasionally do the audiobooks for series that I have done for in the past, but I'm not really doing anything new. It's a wonderful job. It's a bit of a time suck. It can take your whole week up, and the way my life and career sort of evolved, I really can't do that. So, but it's an amazing thing for voice actors. I highly recommend it. It's also just a great skill to have.
So in terms of skill set for voice actors versus on-screen actors, what's kind of the difference? Like, are you supposed to have like a wider range of voices and sounds you can make, or what do you think that like makes you good at being a voice actor?
There's this great book called Acting with Style. I love it a lot. It's about sort of different modalities and styles of theater, but I think it relates really well to these kind of questions, which is the core principles of acting are fundamentally the same, but the specializations do require a certain level of like technical acumen. So you can bring in an on-camera person who is very skillful and bring them into the studio, and if their cold reading skills aren't as honed as perhaps like their microfacial expressions are being on camera, they might not be able to deliver. But it's also true the other way. You could have someone give you a voiceover performance that stirs your soul, and then you put them on camera and they don't know what to do with their eyebrows and their hands. So while it's fundamentally the same skill, it's a little bit specialized in entertainment. And that also goes throughout genres too. You might have someone who's an amazing cartoon voice actor, and they don't really book commercially, or vice versa. So I believe that everybody could, if they wanted to diversify like that. But then, I don't know, if you're crushing it on camera or you're whatever, why not? And there's people who can do it all. So yeah, it's definitely different when it comes from genre to genre and style to style.
Are you a good singer, or does that skill not translate?
Yeah, I did a bunch of sessions singing for Disney. I think that kept me fed in the early part of my career, from the residuals and royalties. In Breadwinners, I sang all the time. I sing mostly at work, at my cartoons and stuff like that. And then when we did a live show at Critical Role in Chicago, I worked with a composer I knew and wrote a song to pitch to Critical Role. And thankfully, they were silly enough to let me sing it. So yeah, I grew up doing musical theater. I love to sing. I think musicality in general is a fantastic skill to have in voiceover. It helps you with rhythm, pace, tempo, tonality, where to place your voice, all of those sort of things. Now, I love to sing. I don't get to do as much of it as I would like to anymore, but if the opportunity comes, I don't know, give me a little time to warm up, and I'll still belt one out.
So you have hundreds of thousands of followers on like Twitter and Instagram. It seems clear that you have like a real audience, a real fan base. How does a voice actor build a fan base? Like, is it just people could just recognize their voices and can kind of follow those voices across projects and somehow pieces together that this person has voiced all these characters, or what's that?
Dude,
like?
If you're gonna ask me why I have those followers, I have no idea. My Instagram, my Twitter sucks so bad. I put zero effort into them. I don't know. I post selfies and pictures of my family and pictures on hikes, and I'll occasionally tease the fan base with stuff that I'm working on Twitter. I don't know, man. I don't know. I just enjoyed the early days of Twitter, like in the early, I still call it Twitter, not X or whatever it's supposed to be. I don't post very much, but when I do, I try to make it either meaningful or fun, or like give the fans a peek into my real life. I've got a friend, Adam MacArthur, who plays the main character in Jujutsu Kaisen, who loves to make content. He's great at it. He's got a great TikTok following, and he'll be like, "Do you want to do a video?" I'll be like, "Yeah, sure." I mean, I like doing that stuff. I just I don't have the skills. I vlogged for about 5 years on YouTube, which was fun. And people, I think I don't know. I've got no interest in like promoting myself. I just kind of enjoy like showing what my life is like, and people seem to find it. I don't know. My wife did a family photo, and we did it in sort of like a Wes Anderson style, and she styled it and picked the place. And that's my highest performing like post of all time. And I'm like, I didn't do that. My wife did that. She's awesome. So yeah, I don't know. You tell me. I have no idea.
So you never made some kind of like, this is going to be my social media strategy or my creator strategy. Like I interviewed a guy, Scott Brown, yesterday, who for the podcast for an episode that hasn't come out yet, but like,
sure,
he's gone in between. Like he's worked for traditional media companies like Hulu and Spike TV, but then he also worked with like Mr. Beast and like and now he's doing like micro dramas and stuff like that. So he very much feels comfortable floating into the traditional Hollywood space and the kind of the so-called creator economy. But you've never tried to go, I mean, you work with Dropout and stuff like that, which is sort of in that creator economy adjacent thing, but like you've never tried to build out your personal brand.
No, I've never had a PR agent. I mean, maybe I'm a fool for that. I don't know. Maybe I would have millions of followers if I did that. Probably not. But what I would say is that I'm more interested in creating authentic things. So when I go and do a spot on Dropout, or when I go and something goes viral from Critical Role or whatever, or I do one of those videos with Adam, I'm doing it because I want to, and it sounds like fun. And I think maybe a while ago there was a time where I was like, because Hollywood was pushing it so hard, they're like, "How many followers do you have?" And I was like, "This is stupid. It shouldn't matter." But obviously it does. So maybe there was a point where I was trying to grow it, but definitely not now. My business partner, who owns the other half of Sassy Chap Games, Ray Chase, we do conventions almost every weekend, like 30 weekends a year. And, that's a real sign of how much you're out there in the world, because real people are coming to see you, right? And it's empirical. It's immediate. It is the lines that people line up to see you, right? And, Ray is like super popular. Like he crushes at these things. And like 2 years ago, he was just like, "I don't think I want to do social media anymore." And I was like, "I'm going to post like a couple times a year when something cool happens, or I'll promote our game when it comes out and that sort of stuff. But that's it." And I was like, "Oh, I don't know, dude. Like, you gotta stay relevant, all this stuff." And then his lines have only gotten longer. So I'm like, "Oh, I don't know if it matters." I think he's just doing cool shit and people gravitate toward that. Pardon my French. But, yeah, I think it can be either, right? Like, obviously, I'm also not Mr. Beast, so but that's not my goal. In my heart, I'm an artist and a creator, and I want to make stuff. I'm not trying to crack the algorithm. It just doesn't matter to me. Yeah.
You mentioned you do conventions 30 times a year. Like, how does that work? Like, how does that fit into your career? Is it like you're paying for a booth, or is the convention giving you a booth, or like how does that dynamic work?
I like your question. That's nice. No, they invite me out, and then they'll fly me or me and my family out, and they'll set us up at whatever city the show is at, and then they'll provide a space for me. And then the covenant being, people will buy tickets to go to the show in part to see me but also all the other guests that are at the show. And then, from a business standpoint, they'll guarantee that I'll make a certain amount by selling autographs or pictures. And usually people leave with something tangible. They'll bring their toys, they'll bring their Funko Pops. I have a huge collection of prints that I've commissioned from artists over the years. And then we get to have a fun interaction, and then they leave with something cool. And I think that's a bigger part of my career than anything else. I would say 10 years ago when I started, it was like 80-20 cons to like stuff that I'm doing, but they were residuals back then, right? Now I still do the same amount of work and it's probably 70-30 the other way. So conventions have become a much bigger part of my life. And there used to be this negative stigma on it 15, 20 years ago where I was like, oh, you're doing conventions, you're washed up. And now it's like, oh, I see movie stars every weekend. I see people that are on TV right now doing conventions. And it's a big business, but at the same time, it still feels very like honest. I have one-on-one reaction. I mean, there are people that sit there and like hammer out autographs and be like, see ya, thanks, whatever. And there's a bad rap with that. But like, I don't know. I get in trouble because I'm pretty slow when I sign. But yeah, I enjoy meeting the fans. I spend Monday through Thursday either in a booth or at this desk or whatever. And that's how I get out. And, I'm a theater person. So like, that's how I interact with the audience, right? It's really fun.
So like for the convention, so like obviously the big major convention is Comic-Con. So are these kind of like more niche conventions, like a specific anime convention, a specific gaming convention? Like what kind of conventions are these?
Boy, they used to be more classified and they still are. They push that a little bit. But a lot of them have become a lot more crossover. Yeah, I mean, I do Comic-Con. Like I do Comic-Con every year. I'm usually on a panel or I'm hosting a panel or I'm doing a signing and then but I will also go to like Animeverse Houston, which you're like, oh, that sounds small. And then I went there, I was like, oh, they've grown 20,000 people since last year. So, these events, you could go to a convention in 4 different cities every weekend of the year. So it's people really enjoy it, and I'm glad to see the way that it's grown. It was a little sloppy when I first started. It was a little bit like, who am I working with? But it seems to have gotten a lot more professional and cohesive, and yeah, it's just good, clean fun. It's where like-minded people can get together and sort of celebrate and enjoy the things that they love together. And I really can't think of much outside of sports that's like that. So it's pretty cool.
So the way the economics work is the convention pays your expenses to go out there, and then there's some way that you charge money for you to sign things. So people line up. Have they bought tickets before they've joined a line, or they're paying once they get to the front of the line?
Depends. Every con's different. Typically, it's just sort of line up. So like if you have a longer line, somebody might wait for 6 hours to see you. But if you're just like up and coming and you have maybe 1 or 2 shows under your belt, maybe you're kind of just sitting at your table and people pass by and they're like, oh, I like that show. And then they'll come and snag something from you or something like that. I when I first started doing it, I was going for like $100 a weekend and signing 1 print under a set of stairs in like Weeboken or some stuff. You know what I mean? Like, and then now I do like the biggest shows in the world, and like, sometimes it does take 6 or 8 hours to wait. Other shows will have like a ticketing system. Like I'm going to New Zealand in 3 weeks and they have a ticketing system. So that'll make things more efficient for them. And then we have photo ops so that where there's a professional photographer and you get your little blue photo and you can get that signed. It's an interesting business. If you've never been to a fan convention, I say go grab a costume and slap on some makeup and go get after it. It's super fun.
Is the thing you're selling is the signature, or are you selling some kind of merch that then the added benefit is the signature?
I think that's always it. Yeah. I mean, I have prints on my table so that people who don't have anything can get something signed.
But if they already have something, you still charge them money to sign that thing.
Oh yeah, it's the autograph for sure. Yeah, and it's a weird market. There's a huge like resale market too, which is weird. But in my opinion, my prices are fair, but if you were to, if you're going to wait in my line for a couple hours and you get your Funko Pops sold and then you want to go sell it on eBay, I don't care. It's your thing. You can set it on fire, shoot it into space, sell it on eBay. It's your time, your money, your thing. But, and that's fine. But I do prefer it when it's like a kid with like a print or whatever, and like it's something that they really want and their parents are there and they're excited to see it. Like, I mean, that's fun. Or like a really passionate adult and all that stuff. And they always give like fan art too. That's one of my favorite things. And they give that to me, and, or they made something, or it's just like a little tchotchke or a gift. And I have a little, table I set up, or a little couple chairs I set up behind my booth, and I keep it all. I take a picture at the end of the weekend, and I'm one of those like anal people who actually takes it all home, and I have a filing system, and I make everybody, sign their fan art for me, and then I file it away. And I don't know, I have 2 kids. There's a part of me that like wonders if one day when I kick the bucket, they'll look through dad's old files and be like, wait, what did dad do again? What is this weird? But yeah, it's cute. It's good.
How much do you charge per signature?
Depends on the show. I think currently my rates are $60 per signature. Yeah, if you bring something yourself. Yeah.
So if you're sitting in a restaurant and someone comes over, says they're a huge fan, wants to take a selfie from you, wants a signature, do you say to them, sorry, this is something I charge for, or do you just do it?
No, you're digging in deep now, Simon, huh? No,
this is a media industry podcast. This is what
I would never in a million years deign to charge someone outside of a convention for anything. That to me, if any of my fellow actors do that, that is their purview. I do not judge, but for me as an individual, that's a hard no. But I would, well, there are people who will like camp out at airports and wait for us with like blank Funko Pops to like try and get us to sign. They're like a version of a autograph scalper, right? I don't prefer those people. I tend to not sign those, but every once in a while I'll be like, whatever, fine. And I'll fire off a few and I'll be like, I hope I made your day or whatever. But a real fan, if I was at a restaurant and there's no what if. This happens 80% of the time that I go out. I'm not famous, but like I'm famous enough to get clocked. And typically people are incredibly respectful for the most part. These fans, like, it's not that they know the rules, but they're very, very cognizant that I'm on my own or I'm with my family. And a lot of times they'll just want to say hi and they won't ask for anything, but I'll see them clutching their phone and I'll be like, do you want to take a picture? And they'll be like, oh my God, yeah. So they're like, yeah, let's take a picture. Come on. So like, I'm kind of a sucker for that. I will take a lot of pictures, or if they happen to have something on him and they're like, we sign my Jujutsu Kaisen backpack and we're, at the mall or something, 100%. No way I would ever charge for that in IRL. But when you're in the convention space, yeah.
I'm pretty sure I know how you got your 200,000 followers on Instagram. It's just people taking photos with you and tagging you on Instagram. That's all it is.
Maybe. But I would also say that, in addition to that, I would also say, if I were like, oh, not right now, right? Like if I'm having like, if it's 5 a.m, I'm at the airport and someone clocks me, I'll still be nice. And I always encourage people to come say hi. I'll get tagged in posts where it's like, I saw Robbie Daymond at Barnes & Noble. And I'll be like, well, why don't you come say hi? You can, don't be scared. So, yeah, anyway, yeah, that's kind of the economy of it. But when you're at the convention, I'm rarely anywhere but my hotel room and at the booth or doing a panel or a show or something.
So tell me about Critical Role and like Dropout and stuff like that, and how that fits into your career. So that's more on camera. It's not scripted, right? You're playing like a D&D game or something like that. So I think a lot of my audience is more traditional media people. They maybe don't know about these live D&D gameplay and stuff like that. So tell me a little bit about that. They should,
because it's creator economy at its finest, right? I don't want to mess up their lore. I'm not a founder of the company. I've just been a cast member for the last 5 years or so. But we are friends and I understand the basics of it. They started streaming, Dungeons and Dragons live. It was a grand experiment and it blew up. To my knowledge, they still have the highest all-time, Kickstarter entertainment thing for their animated show. I think they did like, I'm going to botch the numbers, but like 12 million or something to make an episode. And it ended up being, I think Legend of Vox Machina is going on to their 5th season on Amazon, and Mighty Nine just premiered. These are both cartoons for grown-ups. And they just debuted that this year. So, they're a massive success, mostly because they're really, really fundamentally good people, making cool stuff for an audience that they know. So it's tough. I think other people have tried to catch that lightning in a bottle over the years, and it's tough to replicate because it's just so genuine. And then if you want to try to create it or emulate it without being derivative, it's really tough. It's a special sauce. I think Dropout succeeded because they were also a group of improvisers who put their spin on it, who one of their key players is a game master, and there's also other gamers in that group, so it made sense for them to do a live play. And I would say for them to be after that amount of time, these are ex College Humor people who started Dropout TV, and they're good at business too, and they turned something genuine into a show, and now a network. To my knowledge, I believe they just announced that they're doing 24/7 TV like cable. So pretty cool if you ask me. Yeah, it's quite cool. Yeah.
The Critical Role live play, where is that streamed?
Well, originally it was, everywhere, mostly Twitch. I think you can still watch it everywhere. I think it's still on Twitch. It's definitely still on YouTube, and they have their own streaming service called Beacon. So Beacon includes a bunch of other additional content, other D&D live plays, spin-off series, recaps, animated stuff, and then they just launched that a couple years ago, and it's growing, and the base is growing and growing and growing. And I think this direct to consumer pipeline, where you're sort of taking out third-party entities that are crushing you at on your platform fees, is really the future for most people. Podcasters figured this out, 7-8 years ago, right? Maybe even sooner. So it only makes sense for Critical Role to pivot in that way. And at the same time, they continue to make things that are have mainstream appeal via mainstream ways. They've got their own publishing company. Their shows are on Amazon. They grew this little single or double camera web show from 11 years ago, 10 years ago, into I would say a media empire. And they've managed to keep everything independent. Really, really admirable. So when I started making video games and had this idea, and our company started partnering with other real entities, the big question was, can we stay independent and nimble and still do something at scale? And having friends at places like Critical Role, and just even in their orbit, getting to watch how they do business, was really informative for me as a creator turned into a producer. So, yeah, I really couldn't speak highly enough about them. I think they've really done something right here and made something really magic.
And then Dropout, they have their own streaming service, like a paid subscription streaming service. And I was listening to the guy who runs it, and he said that he's able to get big name comedians and stuff because he's extremely flexible in terms of how he works with people, in the sense of he's not wanting you to exclusively work on that show and stuff like that, so people can fit it into their schedules on whatever else they're doing. What's that kind of relationship like? Is it
yeah. Well, here's another thing too, and I don't think I'm speaking out of turn here. I think this is sort of known that they have a rev share model, and I don't know what the numbers are by any means because I've only done a few shows there. But that's something that we've done at our video game company too. And boy, has that brought in a huge amount of talent, right? And I think that is something that, regardless if the number itself doesn't move the needle for you for doing an episode or two, just for someone to go, hey, I'm going to give you a piece of the pie here, we're both going to gamble on success, but still pay you fair up front, man, you're always going to get talented people to be able to be on board. And also, these Dropout shows, they come with a certain level of virality that I think anyone trying to make cool stuff and be relevant in a genuine way on the internet is going to gravitate toward. I mean, these videos, they pop off because they're fun and funny and endearing, and they really know how to engage with the internet culture. So this is something that traditional media in Hollywood's been trying to do forever. I remember back in the day, 10 years ago, I was doing Spider-Man, and they're like, guess what? We got YouTuber 9000 right now who's got 1 billion followers. Everyone loves him. They're going to come in and be your bad guy this episode. And I'm like, why? They're terrible. And they're like, oh, it doesn't matter. All their viewers are going to watch. And I'm like, no, they're not. You think any viewers from their YouTube channel are going to come over and watch this Spider-Man cartoon episode. And not to like poop on that by any means. All these execs are doing their best to try to leverage success, but I guarantee you after like Iron Lung dropped, there's a billion execs in traditional media right now going like, well, what YouTuber wants to make a movie? How do we get a YouTuber to make a movie? And I'm like, you dummies. That's not what happened. You didn't make a popular YouTuber make a movie so you all could make money. Someone had a passion for something with a passionate fan base, leveraged 15 years of good guy pedigree on the internet, and those fans came out to support them because they knew it was something that was passionate, and the product was pretty darn good for a first film. It was great. It was fine. But so there's that thing where it's like they're not connecting these things for some reason. And, you know, I hope that they do, and I hope that they give creators more of a chance to leverage their passion projects, because it is still pulling teeth to get someone to cut a check. So it's interesting.
Yeah, for context, you're referencing Markiplier as a YouTuber who self-funded his own movie and then got his fans to lobby a lot of theaters to show it, and I think he had like an opening weekend of like $20 million, which is incredibly impressive for a self-funded independent movie.
Yeah, of course.
You mentioned the revenue share. Is that? I seem to remember him talking about this too. Is it like he takes the annual profits, some proportion of that, and then redistributes based on some kind of metric? Because it can't be on a per episode basis because it's a streaming platform. So it's not like each episode is generating its own P&L or anything like that.
Yeah, you'd have to ask them. That's beyond my understanding. I've only ever guessed it on the show, but I do know that that's part of the well, and they informed me of it as someone who was working on it. So yeah, I think it's pretty sweet.
Yeah. So you launched your own gaming studio. I'd love to just spend the rest of our time talking about that. Sure. So it's called Sassy Chap Games. That's
correct. By the way, Iron Lung made $50 million worldwide. I think I just looked it up. I think the budget was like a couple.
Yeah, 20. It was $20 million like opening weekend. Yeah, but it's made much more since then.
That's pretty good. A 20x is pretty good on a film. I'm not gonna lie. Sorry. Yeah. Sorry, I had to look it up. I don't make sure. I don't like getting vetted on podcasts and being wrong. Yeah. We formed Sassy Chap Games. We started it in 2017, 18, something like that. So my fellow voice actor, who is the lead in Final Fantasy 15, Ray Chase, has always wanted to make a game, right? He's been going to GDC since he graduated undergrad, right? And I love video games as well, and as a performer. So he was like, I want to make a game. So we were basically just like riffing on what kind of game to make. And, our background is in comedy a lot. So we're like, well, what can we do that's funny but heartfelt? How do we leverage our superpower of narrative and what kind of game can we make? We're probably not going to make the next great third-person shooter, right? So we had this idea to do what's called a visual novel, and in the form of a dating sim, which is otome game, which is very popular in Japan and has a huge following here in the United States, but it is very niche and very oversaturated. We knew this going in. And one of the precepts is like what kind of dating environment is. There's games called like Monster Prom. There was a little short spoofy one where you could date Colonel Sanders, and it was like an anime style. There's a game called a Dream Daddy where you date hot dads. There's a game called Hatanofo Boyfriend where you date birds that turn into people. It's a pretty big genre. So one day I was just like, well, what about just date everything? It's just everything. It's the remote control. It's the TV. It's the air that we breathe. And we laughed about it and then, a lot and kind of riffed on the idea. And then a couple days later, Ray came to me and he was like, hey man, that date everything idea, I want to run with it. And I was like, oh shit. Okay, cool. So we started a company and fired it up and did all the stuff that we needed to do. And, threw some of our own money into creating a vertical slice, which is a playable demo of the game. We put a deck together. And then I think we started in 2018. By 2019, we were pitching at like GDC and pitching in person at studios in Hollywood. And then COVID happened. So we got a little kneecapped. Nobody was taking pitches. Everything was economically uncertain. And then in 2021 and 2020, we tooled it up and invested some more money because we didn't want to let it die on the shelf. And then 2022, we were back in earnest pitching again. And by the end of 2022, we had, after 6 months of lawyering, hammered out our deal with our producer, or not our producer, our publisher. In traditional gaming relationships, a publisher markets and takes the game to market and then typically funds it. And then there's a revenue split, and then the developer makes the product with a bunch of milestones and along the way. So it was tumultuous and difficult, and they say it takes a miracle to ship a game, and we did. And then our game shipped, and we sold 500,000 units in the first 6 weeks, which is a pretty huge success for an indie game.
So the publisher, so you pitch it, the publisher greenlights it, they give you a budget, you take that budget, and then you hire game developers, animators, voice actors, all that. You use that budget as like an advance to like fund the creation of the game.
Close. We are the developer. We had talent on staff already, but then yes, you staff up. You find the right programmers and artists, and then for our game, we have one of the biggest and this isn't a flex, it's just a fact. We have one of the biggest and most star-studded like voiceover cast ever. There's 100 dateable characters in our game, and they're all like a lead character. And they're just the heaviest hitters in our business, from anime to video games to cartoons. And then we staff up, and then, we go into production. And then, if you want to know like the nitty gritty, because this is, business media podcast, it's a monthly milestone system with a 0% failure. You don't get paid. Like if you mess up any of your milestones, you have to file for an extension, and then you continue on. So, every month you're hitting a milestone that gets you your next month's check. That's just to show that, you're going to deliver as a developer, and that your publisher has a chance to say, okay, you guys cannot make a game, you're out, because this is our first game. So, kudos to Team 17. That's our publisher who took a chance on us. And then they got to earn the reward of a game that's, I think we're almost at 800,000 copies right now. So, and it's been about 7 months. So we're in a good spot.
You had 100 top tier voice actors. How you kind of alluded to this, but was there like did you lure them with like a revenue share? Like what was that?
Honestly, yes, but we shared a lot of our game. We gave away as a company a huge portion of our profits because we wanted to value and honor the people that worked on the game. And we had a couple million, but we didn't have tons of money to make a game this big. This feels like a game that costs 3 times more than it did. And we enlisted the help of our friends, but it was also a full union project. So everybody on the project was SAG, and we worked at a certain rate within those rates. I'm not going to tell you exactly what it was, but it was a favored nations agreement where every actor made the same thing, and no one was allowed to be billed higher or lower, and everybody got the same revenue share. And we shared a lot of the back end. I think at this point we've given back roughly $750,000 in rev share. So it feels really nice because we cast people that are new to the business and then veterans. So there are people that I cast that I'm pretty sure the rev share doesn't move the needle for them, but there are also people that I know that are just starting out who are crushing, who are like, oh man, I just got my rev share check, how cool, because that's just not something that's done in video games. There are no royalties, not really. It's usually it's a pittance of a buyout under the SAG contract where you get like a couple $100, and then they buy you out up to like 1 million units. But we were just like, nah, let's not do that. Let's create a new contract and do a real rev share pool. So it's pretty sweet.
And what year did it launch? Last
year in June. Yeah.
And you said that it initially sold 500,000 copies. What does that mean? Like
units?
Yeah, so I'm 41 years old. I haven't bought a video game since I was a teenager. So Obviously that meant like buying a CD or a cartridge. But I understand that there's this like Steam and other kinds of things where you can now download it online. So what did it actually sell?
Sure. Well, we did have physical discs, so you're not too far off the mark. We were physical on Nintendo Switch and PlayStation 5. You could buy us in, Best Buy, Target, wherever. And then digital downloads on Steam. For those of your audience who don't know, Steam is a marketplace platform where you can download video games to play on your gaming PC. Gaming PC gameplay still eclipses all three major consoles combined. Not just for our game, but all games. So Steam was 60% of our sales, followed closely by Nintendo Switch, which you can also download on their store, followed by PlayStation, which you can download on their store, followed by Xbox, which you can download on their store. They had sort of anticipated that we would be, that our projections, they're like, hopefully he'll recoup within a year, and we recouped in our pre-sales. So it was pretty nice. Yeah. Yeah.
Oh, sorry. I was going to say, what do you attribute that success to? Like, obviously you're going to say it was a great game, but like, what was in the marketing, or like, what was the thing that allowed people to find out about this game?
Yeah, I mean, it went viral on TikTok, which is pretty darn nice. From the jump, which was our announcement video, we commissioned an amazing animation company, and we did a fully animated announcement video. So I think we hit the right mark with our very first piece of announcement marketing, and then so we hit the right mark with our marketing right out of the gate. So that really helped us, and then so the concept was strong, and I think that was really important for me because we didn't want to rest on the laurels of our following, or whatever you want to call it. So my rule was always, I don't want to over leverage who we are making this. I want to put it out and see if our product is good. So thankfully people grabbed onto it. And then when we continued to leak stuff out, announced some voice actors, and then it finally dropped and went into demo, was a huge thing for us. We did a demo where you could play a small portion of the game, and it just went crazy. It was fantastic. It was like that 2 months before we released was a really big moment for us. We started seeing the pre-sales come in, and then ultimately when the game dropped, it just went so viral on TikTok and Instagram and all over the place. It was really social media driving a huge portion of it. You get a marketing breakdown anytime your publisher does anything, and the paid marketing versus the user generated content, you couldn't touch it. You'd spend $1 billion, trying to get to that many people. I think when we started, we were doing, across all platforms, user generated, we were doing views in the billions in our first month. And then we're still 7 months later doing like 50 million impressions a month, depending on and none of it's us. It's all user generated content. So when you have this big cast too, and people have their favorite characters, and there's 100 different characters to choose from, basically something funny happens in the algorithm where it creates like this storm of cross generation, right? Because you go, oh look, my favorite character from my favorite anime is in this. And then someone goes, oh my gosh, did you see that my favorite character from my favorite video game is in this? And then they talk in comments, but they're mentioning the characters and the shows. And then now there's millions of people doing that. And so the algorithm goes, what is everybody talking about? So if you were to cross-reference our Google Trends for the 3 months peak surrounding our release, we're nuking everything mainstream, like from a trending standpoint. And obviously it's a narrative game, so it planes off. And then when we release our next thing with it, it'll spike up again, hopefully, if we can maintain our fan base, and there's pretty strong. So yeah, whenever something's successful like that, it's always hard to say why, but to our knowledge, well, not to our knowledge, it's just an empirical fact, we're the fastest selling dating sim of all time. I think it took the next competitor like 10 years to sell 1 million copies, and we'll probably do it within a year. So
when you say UGC, you mean like this is like live streamers who are then taking clips and then uploading them of them playing the game?
Yeah, well, not just that. It's more creative than that. Yes, we definitely have like people playing, and it hit mainstream enough where we had like some influencers like Cutie Cinderella and Vanilla Mace playing, and like people with millions and millions of followers. but like also a ton of smaller streamers that were blowing up because of it. We were getting viral clips, with hundreds of thousands of shares and tens of millions of views. It was wild. And then, but also just like cosplay. If you're unfamiliar, it's dressing up as the characters from your favorite thing at a very high level, replications of these characters who are very unique and fun. And that's still going on. People are still posting, UGC that's of them as their favorite character, and it's still doing great. I mean, I go to these conventions and sometimes I'll see more Date Everything cosplayers than I will like mainstream anime. Now, granted, my sample base is, subjective because they're coming to see me and they know me from that thing. But yeah, it's amazing to see the way that it sort of definitely punched above its weight culturally for the type of product that it is. Yeah.
And then if I understand what you're saying about the algorithm is like basically the algorithm would, even if you didn't mention some anime because you had some anime actor in there, the algorithm would basically reverse engineer that people who were fans of this anime show would also like these videos about this video game, just because the way that their fans were interacting in the comments together. Obviously, these algorithms are a little bit opaque, but they can kind of draw inferences based on who's interacting with two different kinds of content, basically.
It's the only guess I could have as to why, outside of just the quality of the product itself, that it would do those kind of numbers. Yeah, it's got to be something like that. Yeah, because and this, obviously this is anecdotal. No one has true backdoor knowledge of why an algorithm does anything. I'm sure someone does, but it's not me. But that's what I suspect, is that we set up something that is a really fun, shareable concept, executed at a high level, and getting people to participate in it that are already targeted at your key demographic. So it was always our intent for that to happen, but it was a gamble whether or not it actually would, and it seems as if it did.
So what's happening now, post success, in terms of, like, I think the reason someone pitched me to have you on was I think you had signed with an agency and that there was some kind of other deals in the works. So tell me about what's happening with your gaming studio now.
Well, we're in a cool spot right now because we've got a game out, which is generating us income, so we're able to continue to function as a company, and being profitable out of the gate is a real blessing for any artistic endeavor. And so we've got enough money to keep the lights on and develop new stuff and keep our core IP, which we own in its entirety, active. So as a company, we'll continue to obviously expand upon Date Everything, but as CEO of that company, my vision is for that to be the first thing that we made, not the only thing that we made. A lot of companies that are smaller like us, they'll make a banger and then they're like, okay, the next 15 years of my life is making parts 2, 3, and 4 or whatever. So while we will continue to do that, because you don't just give up a successful IP, and ours was built with so much room to expand, we are developing other things. So to that end, we've got a whole new IP that is we've been pitching at DICE, which is the big conference a few weeks ago, depending on when you air this, a few months ago, and fully developed. It's a different genre, but made by the same people, and we want to be one of those studios that, where even though we genre pivot, we're known for the quality and hitting the tone of what we're trying to make correctly. So we've got that. And then we would like to develop maybe 2 other indie darlings about the size of Date Everything, small and nimble, with a really, really fun and passionate team. And then we sign with CAA, as I mentioned. It's they're the biggest agency in the world, and they're here to support us for our other endeavors outside of video games. So our umbrella company owns a publishing company and a media company that our goal here is to take the video game driven IPs that we have and put them out into other spaces where they belong. So, some of them are more natural than others. You could obviously see whatever, but, we're in the works of doing a short manga series for Date Everything. We're developing a board game for our publishing company for Date Everything that we want to put out in the world. So, but we'd like to do the same with all of our IP that we're developing as well. So next big steps for us is whatever our next iteration of Date Everything is. We can't tell you what it is, but it is in the works, and it's very exciting. And working on new stuff too. So I think as long as we continue to make what our core team is passionate about and employ, honestly, I know this sounds, employ people that we can trust and friends that we want to work with and treat them well. I have very little fear of failure as a leader of a company, right? And because I love my people that I work with, and they're all incredibly talented and dedicated, and they pour their hearts and souls into this, and I don't think you can replicate that outside of that kind of authenticity. So yeah.
Okay, Robbie, those are all the questions I had for you. Where can people find you online?
Oh yeah, I don't know. Google me, man. I'm everywhere. We talked earlier. I'm not good at that part of it. Robbie Daymond here. I think my Instagram handle is like Robbie Dangerous. Don't quote me. Some kid in the UK took Robbie Daymond. I didn't know what to do, but yeah, man, I'm out there. Yeah, I'm always interested talking to people who are truly interested in the business of making art. So today was lovely. You asked some very astute questions. I appreciate your time. I was glad to be here.
Awesome. Well, this is a lot of fun. Thanks for joining me.
Thank you.